Well, good day. I just thought I would take a minute and make a short video about how to replace a follower in a Mossberg 500 shotgun. And it doesn't only apply to Mossbergs, but there is a variety of private label shotguns that were built by Mossberg that have the same action. This shotgun here happens to be a Western Field model 550 AB, which is exactly like a Mossberg 500. This version here happens to have been made in 1978, so it's an older one, but it's still in nice shape. And the reason why I would want to replace the factory follower with an aftermarket S&J Hardware follower is the factory follower is made out of sheet metal or steel, and several times while I've been using this, it's got kind of bound up inside the magazine tube where I couldn't get a shell into the magazine tube. That could have been because grit or sand or something entered that area and that sheet metal follower just refused to slide past that obstacle. Well, these S&J Hardware followers are made out of machined Delrin, which is a very slippery plastic. It's impervious to most solvents. They also have some relief grooves cut in them so they could slide more free in the magazine tube. And if there would be any debris in there, they very likely would slide past it. The dimensions are made for ultimate reliability. So let me show you how to take this apart, and then hopefully your questions will be answered about how to change the follower on a Mossberg 500 shotgun. So the first thing we need to do is remove the barrel of the shotgun. I'm going to go ahead and open the action slightly and undo the action screw here. And these action screws on the Mossbergs, they stay with the barrel. Okay, so I'm going to loosen this all the way, and then I'm going to remove the barrel completely. And we'll just set this out of the way here. So then that leaves the magazine tube here that's affixed into the receiver. So the magazine tube is threaded into the receiver. It has a closed end here, so you cannot simply remove the spring and the follower and put in a new spring and follower, but we actually have to remove this whole magazine tube to get access to the spring and the follower. So what I usually do on these older versions is I hold the shotgun kind of between my knees, and I'll grab onto the front of the magazine tube with some gloves and just twist it. On the newer version Mossberg 500s, they've used some Loctite, which is a thread sealer, on the threads that go into the receiver. And in many cases on the newer Mossbergs, you'll need to use a heat gun and gently heat that area up, this receiver area up, so that thread locking compound will loosen enough for you to remove it. So let's go ahead and try this one. I'm going to use these rubber gloves. They're knit on one side and a rubber surface on the palm area. And then I'm going to hold on here and just try to untwist it. Yep, and I was able to loosen this one up. So we're going to remove this tube completely here. No need to remove the fore end. We're just going to remove this magazine tube. Then we're going to slide this all the way out. And that'll give us access to the spring. And this is the tube. It all the way unthreaded from the receiver. So I'm going to set this over here. And I'm going to take the spring out. This is the stock Mossberg magazine spring. And then I'm going to turn this upside down and we'll get out the factory follower. And I will show this to you. The factory follower is kind of a cap-shaped affair. Kind of like this. And it's made out of hollow sheet metal. And then we are going to replace it with this Delrin S&J Hardware follower here. And it is also hollow on the back, but it's thick. It's machined Delrin, very slippery plastic. So let me show you how to insert this. So the follower has to go in first, and you can actually just lift up the fore end a little bit and drop it right in the front of the receiver here. You could drop it right in the front of the receiver in this gap, just like this. Okay, and then we're going to feed the spring in. Spring is going to go down here next. And the front of that spring will rest right inside. This front of that spring will rest right inside the Type 3 Mossberg follower from S&J Hardware. And then we're going to put the magazine tube over the spring and get it started back into the receiver. And I'm going to juggle it around and just give it a few wiggles to make sure it's going to seat correctly, and start threading it in there. You know, now at this point you could choose to use some thread locker on the threads, and I'm going to choose not to, because from time to time I like to take the magazine tube off and swab the inside of it with some dry patches just to keep the magazine tube clean. But I have this magazine tube threaded back into the receiver now, and I'm going to hold it once again between my legs and put on my other glove, and then we're just going to give it a quick turn to make sure it's seated as firmly as we can, which it is. And then we're going to assemble it. We'll put the barrel back on the shotgun, so I'm going to have the action halfway up, and then we're going to put the barrel back in here, just like this, and then we're going to tighten this action screw. There's a ball detent on there, so you can kind of hear it click as it gets in place. And then we're going to try the action. The new follower's in there. I'll try to give you a shot of it here. You know, you can see the new follower in there. It's the S&J Hardware Delrin follower, and it moves very smoothly in there. And I anticipate I'll get a lot less friction loading shells, and likewise that Delrin follower will also feed shells into the action a lot smoother than the other one. But it's very easy to install. Don't be afraid of the Mossberg 500 being hard to do. You know, the only thing you have to remember is the magazine tube is screwed right into the receiver, and you're just going to have to remove that. But don't go crazy with it. Don't use any pipe wrenches on it. Don't use any channel lock pliers on it. If you're working with a real difficult one, you could always use a device like this, which is called a strap wrench. And the strap wrench then would go around the front of the magazine tube, and you would turn it counterclockwise with this rubber strap wrapped around the tube, and that would give you some additional leverage to break that initial bond loose. If you do use a strap wrench, be sure to clean the inside of the strap wrench with some alcohol. You want to make sure there's no grease or oil on the rubber strap, because you need the full amount of friction against the magazine tube to break that loose. But again, on these older Mossberg 500 pattern shotguns, they did not use any thread locker. Just on the newer versions, they started to use a product to help lock the tube into the receiver. And that's where you might need to use some heat from a heat gun. Just gently heat the area to soften that adhesive. And then sometimes people need to clamp them in like a 4-inch bench vise here. And you don't need to clamp down the vise hard. You need to wrap the receiver with some leather or some heavy rubber just to hold the gun firmly while you would work to remove the magazine tube. But again, not a problem. Having the S&J follower installed in a Mossberg shotgun really improves the reliability, and in all types of weather or in tactical situations, you absolutely need to get the shells loaded, and you need the shells to smoothly unload out of the tube when you work the action of the shotgun. So thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, go ahead and send me an email, and I'll do the best I can to answer them. Thank you.